What is going on, guys? Hopefully everybody's having a great start to their weekend. We are breaking down this 5-game NBA slate. By the way, I put out an MLB video. We have an MMA video. We are pumping out content left and right all day, every day. I spent the first 3 hours of my morning literally pumping out cheat sheets and content for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. If you guys haven't already, also, if you are iTunes and Spotify users, feel free to head over there. Follow us on everything because we'll be putting out videos not only on YouTube, but also to Spotify and iTunes. So feel free to follow us on literally everything. Also, huge announcement. Today, Patreon subscriptions restart. Today, if you want to get the full value of $20 a month, leverage on the screen. Guys, that $1,000 takedown that I had yesterday was because of James Harden, because guess what? He came in at 22% owned. You're talking about the best offensive player in the NBA, 22% owned. Was literally the best GPP option on our leverage sheet. Said, hey, start James Harden, start Russell, start Porzingis. Guess what? The score was what? An NBA All-Star game? It was like 138 to 136 or something stupid like that. I don't know. It was something crazy, but the over-unders have been absolutely insane. If you guys want to sign up for Patreon today, again, you get access to all that, an overwhelming community, and you get to talk to the guy up above me right now in the chat whenever you want. TJ, I mean, that's pretty fun, right? So,
at me, boys.
We'll get that out of the way. Guys, this is going to be a zoomed through live stream. We're going to cover as much as we can in about 30 minutes, quite frankly, because I have stuff to do, but we have a bunch of content to be putting out. So we got off to a late start here. We're punching in numbers. Right now, I'm going to switch over to Fantasy Labs. These are the statuses as of 11:30 a.m., which is 18 minutes ago. Jamal Murray, questionable. Brogdon, questionable. Oladipo, game time decision, so questionable. LeBron James, probable. AD, probable. Kuzma, probable. All those guys are usually probable anyway. Glenn Robinson, doubtful. So, Pacers coach came out and said that the minutes are going to be monitored anyway for the Pacers, whatever that means. I know they have a thin rotation anyway, so it's kind of like I don't really know what to think of that. I'm not going to look into it too much. I'm probably just going to go with the projections as usual. I just talked for about 5 minutes. TJ, how you doing?
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
I'm good. So Matt's been talking about how he was doing all that stuff for 3 hours this morning. I just woke up, so.
So there you have it. That's why we're off to a late start. So
yeah, it's my fault, guys. I slept in a little too late.
Let's go ahead and just off the rip talk about the Vegas spreads because it dictates the chalk here pretty early. The Clippers are playing the Pelicans. Like I said, we're targeting teams that are playing the Pelicans. The highest owned guys on the slate are Kawhi Leonard and Paul George for that reason. We're talking about two superstars on the best team in the NBA, almost the best team in the NBA, Spurs. First, we have the Clippers again at a 117.75 over under, 45 and 39% owned. Guys, I'm just gonna say lock and load them in cash. I think those are the most two best options on the slate as far as ownership and just being safe. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm confident in it because Paul George or Kawhi, it's one of those two that usually goes off. It's usually not the both of them. 117 is like it's like borderline range for, well, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? But it is the Pelicans. The pace is going to be high. I always question these guys' minutes. Kawhi Leonard, he actually played a decent amount of minutes last game, and Paul George both. Paul George actually played more than I thought. So that was a miss on my side as far as, taking a stab at maybe those guys going under 30 minutes possibly. But you know what? It's okay. We're going to lock and load them in cash. Let me go ahead and sort by team so I can take a look at the rest of this roster. Everybody else on the roster, pretty good. Reggie Jackson, I don't know if he's going to start. Do we have the start? I don't think we have the starting rosters for them yet. I don't think he will if Pat Bev is playing, but Reggie Jackson was heavily involved in the offense. We have JaMychal Green, again, a pretty good GPP option. Last slate, we recommended him as well. Marcus Morris actually did absolutely horrible last game, so I do apologize for the GPP play there, but he is generally hit or miss. Zubac, not bad. I guess the rest of these guys kind of fall by the wayside as far as GPPs. Again, Pelicans are the team to target when you're playing against them. All these guys are viable options in my mind. TJ, what are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, so obviously I love Kawhi. I love Paul. Kawhi actually got a price decrease from that game against the Lakers. He's sub 9K, so I definitely love him against the Pelicans for cash. I also love Paul George. Both of them showing pretty high ownership, and rightfully so.
Hey,
If you
TJ,
look at the
real quick,
pop,
do me a favor and plug your mic and plug it back in. I think it just has some weird feedback. Talk.
hello?
Yeah, I think you're good now. Go
You
ahead.
can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I was just saying that I definitely love Kawhi. I definitely love Paul George today in cash against the Pelicans. Kawhi actually got a price decrease. He's sub 9K, so I'm definitely all aboard that. Paul George still sub 8K, so I love that too. He was 7-2 in the opener against the Lakers. If you look at the popcorn machine, from the game against the Lakers, Kawhi played 33 minutes. Paul George played 34 and a half minutes. They combined for 60% of the scoring for the Clippers. Paul George had 30 points. Kawhi had 28. And Paul George also missed that buzzer beater. And if you could look at Kawhi's reaction on that play, he seemed pretty upset that he was not taking that shot. But yeah, Matt, and I know you alluded to Reggie Jackson. He actually played 34 minutes. I don't think he'll play that much. Bev played 16, so I would assume Beverly's minutes gets bumped up a little bit. Reggie Jackson's maybe take a little bit of a hit. But I definitely don't mind Reggie Jackson for cash. Right now, he's projected at 25 in the uptick game against the Pelicans. I mean, they have the highest team total, 117 on the slate. So I could get behind Reggie Jackson as a last piece at 4-1. And I know I alluded to it big time last time, the last game, the season opener for the Clippers. JaMychal Green, I really like him again today. I'm not going to get off the JaMychal Green train, especially at 3,500 with Trez and Lou off the court. He gets a 5.6% usage rate and averages 0.96 fantasy points per minute. He's a 7 on our sheet. I'm not gonna ignore the numbers, even though he hit value last game. Again, I expect him to have a big game today, and at 3,500, I definitely don't mind him for cash. Definitely gonna be all over him for GBPs.
So, funny story. I put Noah in my cash lamp last slate because he was actually projecting at decently high ownership. He ended up coming at virtually no ownership, so I wasn't complaining, but he was actually in the optimal. I don't think he sees as many minutes as he did last game, but another GBP pump play there. Obviously, Noah is heavily evolved, just a high usage guy, just on any offense, just because he's a good passer. He's always been a smart player. It's just funny to watch him out there anyway. Let's go ahead and switch gears. Like I said, we're going to try to make this fast. So I'm going to say this about the Pelicans. They're all low owned. They're all very low owned. They're all in that same price range as what they were last game. We have Zion still on that minute, I guess, unknown. Right now he's showing at 0.1 ownership, which is obviously not correct. We have to update these. But Brandon Ingram, GPP, Drew Holiday, GPP, all these guys actually pop on my leverage sheet. I won't say which ones specifically, but these guys are flying under the radar yet again because they are playing the Clippers. If this does stay competitive, which it should stay relatively, I like all these guys in GPPs. Like I said, Brandon Ingram's always a good GPP play in my mind. Holiday, Ball's always a hit or miss kind of guy. 7,700, he got that price increase, so that makes him even less viable for cash, but more for GPP. People are going to be scared away of that price tag. TJ, do you have the same thoughts?
Yeah, I do. One guy I'm looking at for GPPs is going to be JJ Redick. I was very surprised at his, not necessarily his production, but he played 26 minutes off the bench. He scored 21 points. I mean, we know he's a great shooter if he gets hot. So I definitely am looking at JJ Redick at that cheap price tag. I figured his price would go up a little bit, but that was not the case. He was 3.6, now he's 3.5. So if he can get those 25 minutes again, I definitely think he can pay that price tag off. But like you said, the unknown is Zion, what minutes he's going to play. I see him projected at 20 right now. He played, how many was it last game? Where are you, Zion? Big guy. He played
Not
15.
enough. Yeah.
Played 15. So with him getting an uptick in minutes and that affecting some of those other bigs like Favors, obviously it's going to affect the production of like Ingram, Drew Holiday. I kind of want to stay away from those guys, but for GPPs, I definitely don't hate it. If I was going to take somebody else in cash, it would probably be JJ Redick as a cheap play. But Ingram, I mean, at 8.3, he's now 7.8. So I guess I could get behind him. It's all indicative on Zion and his minutes, so it's tough to say. But JJ Redick's a guy I'm looking at for GPPs.
Yeah, the ownership just sticks out to me on this team. I mean, you're getting sub 10% on all of these guys, so great GPP options all the way around. TJ, you took a good look at your sheet this morning. Who do you want to go to next? Do you see any?
Denver.
Denver. Let's go to them. All right, Denver. So we're seeing higher ownership on Jokic. Jokic, 28.1%, borderline cash play. I actually have him as a decent cash option because the center position is relatively thin. Jokic, Porter is actually at $3,000, but projected at 21 minutes. We know what he can do. I know it's Miami, but guys, Porter is a usage monster coming off the bench. Usually $3,000. I mean, come on. I mean, that's bottom of the barrel price tag. If you're looking for a salary saver, Porter's the way to go. Jeremy Grant next on the list. GPP options all the way down. I'd say after that, Grant is playing projected right now at 29 minutes, 4,000. He's not a high usage guy, but definitely bubbling in and out there. Monty Morris projected at 26 minutes for me, 13%. Millsap is also always a decent option, 25 minutes, 4,900. I like the price tags on these guys, and again, mixed with the ownership. I know it's Miami, but if this game does go over the implied total, which right now is at 106, I like all these guys for GPPs. I'm assuming you are in the same boat, TJ. What are your opinions on this team?
I absolutely love Denver. So no Will Barton, no Gary Harris, and obviously the big news is that Jamal Murray is questionable. So if Jamal Murray's out, this team becomes pretty chalky in terms of cash. Like Matt said, I definitely like Jokic at 9K. Banging down low with Bam. It's definitely a tough matchup for him because obviously we know Bam's wingspan and just how good defensively he is. But I definitely don't hate him as he's definitely going to carry ownership for cash, especially I think if Jamal Murray's out. I think that goes up a little bit. Matt, your guy Paul Millsap.
Yeah.
Gets a 6.4% usage with all those with Jamal Murray. I mean, with Gary Harris and Will Barton out. So I'm definitely looking at him potentially for cash as a last piece.
Cash, okay.
Well, unfortunately, the numbers were a little bit skewed. So yeah, maybe not the safest cash play. Actually, let's retract that statement. Definitely, I like him for GPPs for sure. But guys, for cash. If Jamal Murray's out, man, Monty Morris, definitely a lock. Projected at 25 minutes right now. I don't hate him. He gets a 2.7% usage bump, 0.91 fantasy points per minute. But yeah, Michael Porter's the guy at 3K. That's way too cheap. That's crazy. If he's playing 22 minutes off the bench, 1.07 fantasy points per minute. So you guys do the math. That should be an easy value play. Should end fire for sure. Him and Torrey Craig. I mean, Torrey Craig, 3K, 27 minutes. Like, what are you doing, Draftkings? What is that? He gets a 2% usage bump with Barton and Gary Harris off the court. 0.79 fantasy points per minute. Not as lucrative for fantasy points per minute as Michael Porter, but I definitely don't mind either of those guys as a plug and play. If I'm taking one for cash, it's going to be Michael Porter, just because I trust him a little more than Torrey Craig to be more productive. But I don't hate either of those guys as a plug-in to try and get some cheap guys in there to be able to pay up for some studs. So. If you want to save some money and pay down on some guys, especially if Jamal Murray's out, it's going to be Monty Morris. It's going to be Michael Porter. Real
quick, want to go over a couple things. Guys, first of all, thank you so much for the support, guys. Joe, $5 donation. Thank you so much. You're the best. Your comment right here. Any updates on the Nuggets injuries and starting lineup? I know if no Murray, Monty Morris could be in play, but another sleeper, Michael Porter Jr. Yes, you actually sent that as soon as we just started covering the Nuggets, so hopefully that helped you out. We actually don't have the starting lineup officially right now for them, but we will definitely update if we get that on stream. It should be coming out actually within the next 15, 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, because I'm thinking Monty Morris starts anyways. So if he's starting, then his ownership percentage in terms of cash is going to skyrocket. I'm seeing him at 20% right now, Matt. I'm not sure what you are. So if he's confirmed starting, he'll take a huge.
You said Monty Morris?
Yes.
Yeah, so 13 right now. Like I said, I need to update these. Usually the mass updates for ownership come out between 12:15, 12:30. Hopefully I get those. I'm going to update those at the very end of the stream. But yeah, it's kind of all over the place. The Bull hype is real.
I wish he was playing more than 12 minutes. Take a stab at him in the GPP if you want, but don't go too crazy.
Generally, what we see with centers is like if anybody's gonna have high upside, it's gonna be these big guys, these big centers, because they're obviously gonna grab more rebounds, be involved a little bit more. I do like Bull, I guess, for a GBP flyer. If he's really showing 0.7%, it'd be interesting to see with all the hype coming back. We saw what he did during scrimmages and stuff, so it'll be interesting to see what his ownership actually ends up at.
Him and Jokic in the front court is just wild.
Yeah, that would be funny to watch. Let's see. Switching. I think we actually just
Jamal Murray.
Yeah, rolled out. So there you go. Let's switch back.
So There you go, guys. Let's wait and see who is going to start at the 2. Who do they have for bodies in the backcourt? It's just so I'm locking in Monty Morris for cash now. I'm gonna run. I am going to go back in court IQ, and I am going to take out you, Jamal Murray. So it's Barton, Harris, and Murray off the court.
By the way, I'm letting TJ do this. I'm just looking at a screen right now. So
stare at me. Millsap, 13.8% usage bump, but that's a 24-minute sample size.
That's still crazy. I expect something similar to that. I mean, you're looking at offensive production across the board here. Jokic should get a bump. Morris and Millsap are the high usage guys on that team.
I wonder who they start though. Okay, so looking at numbers here, Jokic actually gets a 1.5% decrease. Where are you, Monty Morris? Monty Morris, 3.9% usage bump. Grant gets a 4.1 usage bump. Torrey Craig, 2.1 usage bump. And where are you, Michael Porter? Michael Porter, 0.5 usage bump. Michael Porter, 1.18 fantasy points per minute, and Monty Morris, 0.98 fantasy points per minute. So those are definitely the two guys that I'm going to look at. Grant actually is a 1 fantasy point per minute. What did I say Michael Porter was? 1.18, correct? Yeah.
Fantasy points per minute, that's actually insane.
That's price tag. And Torrey Craig, where are you? 0.84.
So yeah, I think I'm gonna, while he's crunching those numbers, I'm gonna give a rough overview. So what it's looking like, I got the question here in the chat. Is Denver Clipper stack a good idea? 100% for cash, first of all, because all those guys are going to be high owned now. Like I said, if you're looking to differentiate yourself, take some of these lower-owned Denver guys. The ownership's going to probably update, and it's going to push towards Jokic. Jokic will be a 100% lock. Millsap's going to go up in ownership, but I don't think it's going to go up enough, to be quite frank, because his minutes are probably going to go up about 4, maybe, if I had to. Because right now he's sitting at 24.5, so I've never seen Millsap play over like 32 minutes. Guys that could easily fall through the cracks as far as ownership, like Jeremy Grant. He's probably not going to be that affected, but could easily get a bump in production. Monty Morris obviously should go way up in ownership. He's going to become a cash play, as TJ just said. Michael Porter is going to be a cash lock. Torrey Craig could fall through the cracks. Another great player to target. And then I saw Dozier in the chat here from Sano. Definitely going to be intriguing once his minutes go up. I don't think he's going to get enough to make it viable for cash, but gonna fly gonna go through the cracks there in terms of ownership. So I'm assuming you're gonna think the same way, TJ.
Yeah, I mean Monty Morris is a 7-2 on our sheet now. Michael Porter's 8-7. Torrey Craig's a 7-7. Even Grant is a 6-7. So I definitely like all these guys. And yeah, Jokic for sure. The two guys I'm looking at are Monty Morris and Michael Porter. I want to see what the starting lineup is before I go out and say who is officially locked in. But yeah, that's great that Murray's out. So
there's a core right there. I mean, we have Morris, we have Porter, Jokic, Kawhi, and PG. I mean, there's 5 right there for you guys. If you're playing anything different in cash, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, should we? I mean, so that pretty much. I mean, that takes care of cash. If we're talking about Miami, I mean, everybody becomes a GPP option. Butler, Adebayo, Dragic. I mean, all those guys with heavy minutes playing against Denver, they don't have much upside because of the defense. I mean, do you even want to touch base on these guys?
For Miami, not really.
Okay.
More GPP plays.
Okay.
They have their full roster, so it's it's going to be the same story that we've seen throughout the regular season for them. No one really slipped out on a wrong price or anything.
I guess we can zoom right over to this Indiana Pacers roster.
There's one guy I do want to touch actually on
okay.
is Tyler Hero at 3-1. If he can get hot and play, he's projected at 17 minutes. If he can play more than that, if he can get 20, 3-1, that's too cheap for him. He's what was he on my sheet? Sorry, Matt, hold on. I'm trying to see.
Nope, you're fine.
0.83 fantasy points per minute. So if he can get 20 minutes, I mean, at 3-1, if you want to try and be different in a GPP from some of those Denver cheapies, then I don't think that's the move, though. So I just wanted to throw him out there at 3-1.
Thank you, Samantha Holler, for the subscription. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, Samantha.
Matt,
you want to go to Utah?
We can go to Utah.
Okay.
You go ahead and dictate the pace of this. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're gonna switch over to Utah now, guys. We saw Utah open up their season against the Pelicans, and if you bring up Popcorn Machine, pretty close game actually. Um, we had Rudy Gobert at 34 minutes, Royce O'Neal at 34 and a half minutes, Ingles 32, Donovan Mitchell 36, Mike Conley 34, and Jordan Clarkson 32. So it was virtually a six-man rotation. And with that, Mike Conley at 5'4", I definitely like. He was at 6'2" to open up the season. He took an $800 price decrease, so I definitely like him for GPPs. It is a tough defensive matchup against OKC. Jordan Clarkson at 3'9". That's just that doesn't even make any sense. I get it. You go from the Pelicans to OKC, so I guess it's just that much harder of a defensive matchup, and that's why the price decreased.
3,900 though. I mean, that's crazy.
3,900, 30 minutes. Like, he's going to see 30 minutes. So, I mean, I definitely like him for cash. He's going to carry ownership. Again, I like Conley. And then Donovan Mitchell, sub-7. Like, that's, again, I think they're focusing too much on that defensive matchup against OKC. So maybe I'm going to be wrong, but I liked all those guys for cash before that Jamal Murray news just broke. So I think that's going to be huge. Denver cash is going to be the move. But, I mean, if the ownership on these guys is going to decrease, I definitely love those three for GPPs: Mitchell, Conley, and Clarkson. I like Clarkson for cash the most. I think he's the safest play at 3,900. But with all these cheap guys now from Denver, and now you got Jordan Clarkson, you're going to be able to pay up for some studs. So I think it's going to be a stars and scrubs type day, especially for cash. But like I said, Mitchell at 6,900, Matt, he's 1.18 fantasy point per minute, 2% usage rate, 6 on our sheet, so I definitely like him. Clarkson's a 7.6 on our sheet, and then Conley a 5.6. So all those guys get usage bumps with Bohan off the court. They're all 25% usage rate guys for their team for Utah. So I love those three for GPPs.
Yeah, one thing I said in my NBA introduction video, and for all you new guys here, NBA is not a team-correlated success sport for DFS. What that means is, like, when one player does bad on one team, or let's say that Jordan Clarkson does bad for Utah, that doesn't mean the rest of the players are going to do bad. You can't say that same thing for baseball. Like, if one player does really good, well, guess what? The other team or the other players on that team are going to probably do well. So one thing to pay attention, especially for a game like a pace-down game, one of these guys is gonna have a ceiling game for Utah, and I think that it starts with Clarkson, Mitchell, and Conley. We know that their thin rotations are coming out. I mean, if you go down to somebody like Ingles, could easily have a ceiling game at 3% ownership. I mean, a very tight rotation. I want to say Royce O'Neal, but he's a very low usage guy. So yeah, I completely agree with you there. And as I was alluding to last stream when we were talking about Rudy Gobert, he's not a high usage guy. He really didn't have that great of a game last game. Like I said, not a huge usage guy. So that's probably the one guy I'm not interested in. I know his price keeps going down, but it probably won't be worth it until he hits that 6.5 range for me. Just, not too great. So let's go ahead and move on from there. Do you want to talk about the other side of the ball in Utah or in OKC at all?
Yeah, the one guy I was gonna talk about was Steven Adams. Obviously a tough matchup down low against Gobert, but at 5'3", seeing high 20 minutes, I definitely like him for GPPs. I like Gallinari too at 5'6". I think those price tags are a little too cheap. And then if Steven Adams potentially gets into foul trouble, I see Nerlens Noel right now at projected at 20 minutes at 3,300. Noel off the bench, 1.08 fantasy point per minute. So if he can see 20 minutes, I definitely don't mind him as a low GPP option. But yeah, Steven Adams and Gallinari are the two guys that I'm looking at. I mean, these OKC guys are all pretty cheap, so I definitely don't hate them. And then Robertson's back. Andre Robertson's back for OKC. Yep. I'm pumped to watch him play, man. He's such a great defensive weapon for we haven't seen him play in almost 2 years, so it'll be nice to see him back out there. He's projected at 15 minutes. Obviously not a GPP play or anything like that, but it'll just be good to see him back on.
Not a high usage guy, just definitely good from a spectating standpoint.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a hard-nosed defender.
Do you want to go to Indiana and talk about the probability of Brogdon, or no? You just want to wait that out?
Yeah, it's just those guys are virtually going to be unowned because the slate obviously blocks at 1.
Which is a great point because huge leverage there if you guys want to use late swap.
Yep. Yeah, so if we get news on Oladipo and Brogdon being out, one of them being out, obviously the other is going to be a great play. We have to wait and see what's going on with the minutes. But God forbid both of them are out. I mean, Aaron Holiday and TJ McConnell at 4K and 3.8 will both see high 20 minutes. So it's definitely a game to keep an eye on, especially for GPPs. The leverage is going to be great. So if you are running GPPs, I would advise you, Matt, I don't know if you want to agree with me on this, but I'd advise you to have some later game stacks so that you can find leverage, maybe lock in some of those cheap Denver guys, and then at 6 o'clock, if we see one of those guys being out, you can go and modify your lineups, and it's going to give you huge leverage on the field. So
I love that strategy. And like, if we talk about alluding back to last night, we had the last game go 138 to 136. So let's just say that Denver only puts up 90 to 100 points. I mean, right there, you're not giving your players enough value. Switch over to somebody like Indiana. Let's say it hits the over. 106.75 is what it's at right now. All those players, if Brogdon is out, end up being good value plays. Boom, you're winning a GPP right there. You just make that roster swap right there. So I like the late night hammers as far as from a strategic standpoint. It's a 7 o'clock game. Hopefully there's no other games there's no other injury news that comes out after that. So I love that strategy. Guys, it is 12:12 right now. We're going to give it a few more minutes. TJ, you want to talk about anything else about this slate? Because I need to go and do my sheets now.
Yes.
So.
The Lakers. I just wanted to touch on Kuzma. 4-3 right now against Toronto. Predicted at 27 minutes. He actually played, where was it? Was it 30? Where are you, Kuzma? Off the bench. He played 32 minutes. Played great for the Lakers in that opener against the Clippers. I definitely like him again for GPPs. I mean, if he can get up to that 30-minute mark, I think that's huge. So at 4-3, he's pretty cheap. Danny Green, 3-5. I don't mind him as a flyer for GPPs. Obviously, we know we can get hot from 3. Didn't really play too hot in that opener. Only had 6 points. He did log minutes, though. He played 25 minutes. And then how about Dion Waiters, man? People were asking DR Waiters or Henny Smith. I said Dion Waiters. I think the minutes would be there. He actually played 21 minutes off the bench. J.R. Smith only played 8. So if you are looking for another flyer, I mean, go ahead and throw some on Dion at 3-1 against Toronto. Why not? Feel froggy.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. I want to talk about the ownership. This is something similar to what we saw Harden last night. AD and LeBron are at 20 and 14%. That's stupid. I like those guys for GPPs. Yes, they got a price increase, which scares those guys off from the ownership. They're superstars. They're playing Toronto. It should be, again, competitive. I like AD a little bit more than LeBron, but again, both great GPP options if we're just talking about superstar potential there.
PJ Dozier just got added to the field.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait and see if he's starting.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up, TJ. I want to refresh my page, see if we get ownerships for you guys real quick. And we actually did. I don't know how much changed in the Denver picture. Not too much. Well, it did a little bit. So Porter went up. Jokic went up. I don't think it went up as much as it should. Jeremy Grant's at the top. Craig went up. But again, these have not adjusted. So if we're talking about GPP plays within these smart cash plays on this Denver roster, I like Craig to get overlooked. I like Millsap to get overlooked. I don't know if it's updated completely because Monte Morris is still down there. If that's the case, I mean, load them up in GPPs too. Dozier didn't even get a increase in minutes. Bol went up to 12, so that's interesting. Bol we were alluding to earlier. TJ, any last words before we go ahead and wrap it up?
I can't wait to watch Ben Simmons play the 4 tonight.
Good point.
That'll be interesting. Say it again?
That's a good point. Forgot about that.
I mean, that team is going to be an absolute wagon defensively. It's just the length on those guys is absolutely absurd. So I'm excited to see that against Indiana tonight, 7. Last words. So I like Denver, and I like those 2 studs for the Clippers for cash. Let's wait and see on a starting lineup for Denver before we make some moves on who's cash and who's GPPs. But I don't think you can go wrong with any of those Denver guys that Matt and I talked about. I think Utah's too cheap. And, try and get some leverage on Indiana later tonight. If Brogdon and Oladipo both get ruled out, it's going to be a great play for you. So
TJ didn't talk about the Pelicans, which means nobody's going to talk about the Pelicans. Again, I still like them for GPPs. Maybe 1 or 2 of those guys. Again, ceiling game, decently high over-under on that game. Should stay competitive. It's actually going in Pelicans' favor right now. They actually just went up another point, so that's noteworthy.
Real quick, Matt, a couple questions. Drew Holiday for cash, not a good pick for cash tonight. Go with Paul George, go with Kawhi in that price range. JaMychal Green for GBP. Will, I love JaMychal Green. I'm not going to get off the JaMychal Green hype train until he completely lets me down. He hit value last game. I expect a big game from him tonight. If he can knock down some of those threes when Kawhi and Paul George drive and kick, then I mean he's money. So yeah, I definitely like JaMychal for GPPs. But yeah, guys, if you have any questions, come find us in the Discord. You can at me. I'm gonna have my phone open from now until lock. So come find us in there. I'll answer any questions that you have. I know Matt will be popping in and out. I know he's got a busy day. So see you in Discord.
All right, guys. With all that being said, have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you later, and let's cash.
See you guys.